Hi, it's Kylie Coo. Welcome to my studio. So a couple of weeks ago I put up a video on how I was organising my paper scraps, and I'll leave a link to that video below. Now, by paper scraps I mean any pieces of paper that I'm going to use for collage, any roll-off sheets, or any failed gel prints, even the kind of pieces of paper that I keep on top of my desk but kind of as a working surface. I love using these in projects, whether it's tiny pieces or large pieces. But what I discovered in organising them is that I have a lot of pieces that really don't have a lot of interest on them. They would do for collage, but they've not got the kind of detail that I might want. So in this video I'm going to be taking some of those larger pieces, such as the failed gel prints, the roll-off sheets, and other pieces of scraps that I've maybe used part of but not completely, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to do some work on these to make them, I don't want to say better, just more in keeping with something that I might want to use, might be drawn to, rather than just going to it and thinking, no, this is not quite what I want. So, I'm going to do a bit of work on them. So to add interest to these pieces, I've got my gel plate out. I've got a yellow lime colour by Reeves, and I've just taken a piece of scrap cardboard there that's got the ribs showing, and I've just stamped that onto the gel plate, and then I've pulled that piece of paper. So the colour is pretty much the same. The green that was underneath is still showing through, but it's just added that bit of interest. Now here I've taken this piece and I'm just picking up any excess there. Next I'm going to take some Payne's Grey. This is a Daler Rowney. I think this tub is pretty close to being finished. I was trying to use up a few paints today that are getting close to being finished, and again I'm just going to brayer that out onto my plate. There was already paint residue on the plate. That doesn't bother me, and in fact I really enjoy if it picks it up. Now what I'm going to do again is to take that piece of cardboard. This makes great marks. I love the way that this turns out, and it's just so simple and really no cost to it. Obviously the gel plate costs, but not some of the materials I'm using here. And again a piece of bubble wrap, and here a piece of embroidery plastic. So 2 or 3 different patterns on there. A piece of paper that I'd probably used on top of the gel plate when I was printing something else, and that's why the paint's round the edges, and suddenly there I've got something that I see more interest in. Here I've got a piece of tissue paper, and I put it down to pick up the residue. That already had some wrinkles in it, I think. I don't know what I'd used that on, probably on the gel plate again, but again, it just adds that interest. I've now got some deep turquoise. Again, this is a Reeves paint. It's a nice colour. I like this, and I'm just, I've just pulled out a selection of colours without really thinking too much about it. And again, all I'm going to do is make some marks, make some texture onto the gel plate. That's a piece of an old kitchen sponge. I don't use a lot of those, but when I'm done with them, what I do is I wash them and then I relegate them to my studio. So that's been quite subtle, the pattern picked up there, but I'm now adding the embroidery plastic again. You'll see that I just pulled up the edge of it on that piece of paper that had some kind of very light kind of green on it. Again, using the bubble wrap. There was paint coming off the bubble wrap because it's been used so often. I go over some of what was already there, and again I'll just put this down and pull it. Never know quite what I'm going to get, but again, to me that just takes on a whole lot of interest for future collage, or for background pages for projects. So I use scraps a lot in my projects. Here I go back to this piece, again just picking up the excess paper, and suddenly I love this, and I'm actually going to put this in my sketchbook because to me it was like trees. I don't think I could ever recreate that. You know, it's one of those kind of unique pieces. I'm just trying to pick up the rest of the paint and actually make it look as if the trees are sitting on some ground. And yeah, so that goes off and that will go into my scrapbook. So yeah, I use scraps in a lot of projects, you know, for collage, whether it's on small art journal pages or whatever. And I'm going to be doing this kind of, I suppose it's like a mini series. Just now that I've got some of my scraps organised, I'm just going to try and start to do more with them, rather than having them sitting about thinking, well, that's not quite what I want. If I can get something onto them that makes them more interesting, then I'll probably be more inclined to use it. So I simply used a tool there. It was one of those that had the kind of, it's almost a catalyst tool, a small thing that pushes paint about, and then just my old scrubby brush and the end of that. And again, it's just mark making. Now using some raw umber. Again, this is it's a Daler Rowney paint, and it's one of those colours that I like to have, but I don't necessarily always use it a lot, but it might just add that certain something to my scrap pages. So a piece of punchinella here, an old oh gosh, there I go, forgotten the name of it, and my cardboard tube with elastic bands round it. Why, a blister pack, I knew it would come to me. And just picking up those different colours there. Now obviously I could take a piece of paper and I could build layer upon layer upon layer, and some of these I will come back and do. No tube of black here, this is just about empty. I think I had to squeeze pretty hard to get this out. So, you know, I'm not, well, one or two of the paints are quite good paints, but they are getting down. But, you know, it's a good way to use up paint that's just about finished. So the blister pack again, the punchinella again, combining the two, and then taking this piece of paper, not putting it all on at once, putting it on quite lightly, moving it around just to try and get different pattern in different places. Tiny scrap, well, not tiny, bigger than a lot that I have, but you know, obviously been used for other things, and again that just starts to take on much more interest. And you know, this is one of these projects, if you've been with me a while, you'll have heard me refer to rainy day projects, and by that I simply mean it's one of those projects where you don't have to think an awful lot about it. So if it's a day you want to be creative but you don't really know what to be doing, you can sit down and do something like this, and it's really quite satisfying. There's no pressure involved. It doesn't matter how they turn out. At the end of the day, these are scraps. So, you know, there's nothing lost if even I pick something up and it doesn't look terribly good at the end of it. I know my scraps will be used one way or another at some point in time. So there I am. I'm going back to that one, adding another layer to it. And again, it already takes on more interest. So if you think that had at least one base layer on it, and I've added two different layers to it now, and it's just given it an entirely different look, and I love the colour of that. Got an old paper bag there. I can't remember if I actually use it or not. I think I do. It's not terribly thick. but I quite like to use that type of thing for collage as well. I think I've pulled a couple of other things out my little toolbox, as I call it, of mark making supplies. Anything that I see that's of interest that would otherwise go into the recycling bin in some cases. Some things can't get recycled, like the blister packs. I understand there is a special scheme now that you can send them somewhere, but you know, normal household recycling doesn't take them, not here anyway. And that's just been an old tube of something that I've you know, plastic packaging that something came in. This is the top of an asthma inhaler, and it makes great marks. You know, when I print them on there, I'm using the gel plate now just as a palette and just stamping onto this sheet of paper. I thought it would maybe just kind of tear. It was already torn. I thought it might tear a bit more if I lay it on the gel plate. So I'm simply stamping onto this. And of course that leaves a pattern on the gel plate as well that I will actually be able to pick up. And these blister packs in different sizes. The paint was starting to get a bit dry there, so there wasn't much came up. A little top of something. Don't even know what now. I've had it for a while. But again, it makes great marks. I don't look to make them uniform, although that would be possible to try and stamp them evenly, but I just like to just stamp them down and see what comes from it. And there I'm using the Punchinella as a stamp. So here's another sheet. Don't know what that was originally for, whether it was a failed gel print or something. Not sure at all, but again, I will just add something a bit more to it. Always trying to pick up anything and getting any colour onto those edges that still remain a little bit white. You'll see I go back and back and back, picking up tiny, tiny bits. I don't like to waste anything at all. Oh, still at it. There we go. So yeah, quite happy with the way that one's turned out as well. Some interesting marks on it. Going on to white now. Now I know that this will likely turn grey. Here's another tube that's just about finished. I know this will likely turn grey. I'm not cleaning off my brayer. I'm not cleaning the plate. You know, whatever shade this turns out to be, that's fine by me. Just looking at what I might want to use. So it was that little top again. That makes a really nice pattern. Bigger top this time. This is off the top of the paint tube. And just pushing that down very gently into the gel plate. A bit of the embroidery plastic. And here's a piece again that was just a scrap, so we'll see how this turns out. This obviously had something on both sides. It's grey, it's grungy, but I like it. So I'll leave links below as well to some of the projects in which I use my scraps. You know, there's my little scrappy journal that I'm using just now, and there was my scrappy rag tags. There may be playlists for some of them, so if there's a playlist, I'll attach the actual playlist below. Here I take the embroidery plastic again, and rather than putting it on in a kind of symmetrical way, I put it on haphazard, and I will just lift this, and there we go. And it's interesting because there's still bits of the original print showing through. That piece there was quite a nice piece. I liked the colour on that, but again, not enough interest in it for me, but that just gives it a certain depth, so the original colour coming through. And no, not going to waste anything, so we'll give this one a go. I'm going to put some more black down now. Again, my brayer was now grey because I just used it, so just going to put the black down, and I'm now going to see if I can use the piece of cardboard as a stamp, and you'll see it's picking up a little bit. So what this does is simply adding the black just adds a bit of contrast to that kind of light grey that was underneath. Back to the cardboard tube with the elastic bands on it. That is a kind of messy job to do, but I do usually enjoy the results. Again, the paint's getting pretty dry there, so there wasn't much came off that. Always back to pick up whatever remains. So I think, can't remember if I'm now just going to do a quick look at what I've got. Yeah, I love that. As I say, that's going directly into my journal, so just not much on that, but I'll go back and add more to that in future. But there's little bits on each of these that I can imagine using. Love the colours on that. That one I will probably come back and make something maybe lighter on it to bring out a bit of contrast. That one a bit dark. So as I say, this is going to be a small series. I will be putting these up probably the next few Wednesdays. The series might be interrupted with another video at some point, but you know, I will number them and I will put them into a playlist if you want to see what I'm doing with other scraps as well. And then of course I'll be going on to use them in various projects. Thanks to everyone that's been leaving comments. I will get caught up with them. The past week has been extremely busy and I've not managed to get to them, but I have been reading them. So hope you've enjoyed this. Hope it's given you a little bit of inspiration as well. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.